course, the child goes to the teacher who will guide that child.
What do you mean by external moral authority? You use that expression a lot.
Materialism has to do with when you are
Hello, welcome back to the course in Values and Spirituality. Today we will be taking up 3 subjects which are of universal interest. The first is entitled, Whenever you point your finger at someone, there are always 3 fingers pointing back at you. The second aspect is, if you keep on doing what you've always done, you'll keep on getting what you've always got. And the third one is, it is happening, but it is not happening to me. Sister Denise, a very warm welcome to you.
Thank you.
So you've mentioned this briefly in other episodes, but I'd like to take you through it quickly in this one. This expression is quite commonplace, isn't it? Whenever you point a finger at somebody, there's 3 fingers pointing back at you. But yet, we tend to be very judgmental towards people on a daily basis. And I'm looking at situations where we need not necessarily articulate our judgments of others, but it's contained in our attitudes and in our minds. And also, if one is looking at somebody who is judging you, you can see it in their eyes.
Oh yes, most definitely. And I think that what we need to do is shift the finger pointing from being one where, I mean, you just see the back of your hand and you're going in this direction. So we have to turn it over so that you're really conscious of the fingers that are pointing back. And because this is something that's often used as an example and people are used to it, they don't bother with it. So we have to make ourselves aware of exactly what these 3 fingers are that are coming back, and so that we really see it. Finger pointing is to do with body consciousness, it's to do with ego, and the index finger is always a symbol of the intellect.
It is? What does that mean?
In spiritual practice, pointing the finger this way is not something that is considered good. What you want to do is point the finger upwards.
To God.
To God.
That's lovely.
You know? So the usefulness of this finger is point towards God, point towards wisdom. The finger that's pointing to another person is accusatory. And you know, if you're going to be accusing somebody else and then you turn it back, you find there's 3 times more accusations that seem to be coming in your direction. So I think that it's to do with making oneself a little bit more humble, because that thing that you're accusing somebody else of, it could easily be you.
You start off on a rather cryptic note by saying, usually you pay attention to the visible and act as if the invisible does not exist. What do you mean by this?
You know, we were talking about the third eye, and the third eye is able to see things that the 2 eyes cannot see. When you're in your materialistic consciousness, all you see is the things that you can point the finger at. But there may be extenuating circumstances, there may be many things that you just aren't taking into consideration because they're not up front. They may be totally hidden, they may be totally subtle, or you may just be disregarding them. And it's just a caveat to say, now, wait a minute, before you rush into an accusation, take a look at what else is there, you know?
You go on to offer some very sage advice. Detach from the activities of others, make no comments, and do not take the law into your own hands. There's a warning in there, isn't there?
You know, in a civil society, there is a system of law enforcement. And if you decide to be vigilante or do extrajudicial executions or whatever, you're a criminal by doing that. You don't have the right. And so you need to understand that if someone is doing something wrong or a crime or whatever, your function is to report it. And it's not your duty to be the, the prosecution, the jury, the judge, and the executioner. That is not. But a lot of people take that on and feel that that's their right and their duty. So we need to make it very clear that no, your rights have limits.
I like what you said next. It's quite practical, but not easy to do. A practical attitude is mentally to give the other person full permission to be exactly who they are. That's big.
You don't have the right to prevent someone from doing something that's merely inconvenient, because when you try and do that, it never works. So in the name of conserving your time and energy, okay, someone is doing something wrong, inconvenient, let the law of karma happen, let them get their own consequences and stay out of it, because you don't have to get involved.
You start this one on a note that's all too familiar with almost everyone watching. It is astonishing, you say, how often you perform the same action hoping for a different result. Why do we do this? It's not lack of intelligence or common sense. Why do we do this?
I'm reminded of the World Health Organization's description of insanity. And it is a sign of insanity to continue doing the same thing expecting a different result.
So why? Why do we do this?
Why are we insane? Are we insane?
Well, isn't there a bit in all of us? I mean, which one of us hasn't engaged in the behavior that you just mentioned?
All of us. Yeah. All of us, yeah. So the thing is that people have acquired this belief. I'm really not sure where it came from, but they have an idea that this course of action is the right course of action. And if it doesn't work, they don't think that maybe it's not the right course of action, because you're kind of attached to your choice of action. And then you say, well, I just have to do it a bit harder, and then it'll work. And so you try and intensify that thing rather than go and back to the drawing board and come up with a different solution. And I suppose we would say it's because of attachment to your own idea. And this means that you have to really detach from your assumptions about how things work, what things are, and really analyze it on its own merits so that you don't always do the same thing. Sometimes we can say, well, it's because humans are creatures of habits. And yes, we have all kinds of habits, good ones, bad ones. If you have a good habit, you'll always get a good result. And that's fine, you don't mind getting a good result. But it's when you have the bad consequences of a particular habit that it's then incumbent upon the person to say, the only reason things are going wrong is because of my habit. And then I have to change it. Not so easy to change a habit because it's got a power of momentum. One of the uses of spiritual practice is that it is a way to absorb enough power to change the direction of your life so that the power of the momentum is exceeded by the power of your spiritual accumulation, and then you can go the other way.
You mentioned a number of virtues at the end of this part, so I'd like to know what made you conclude that these are the virtues that will be of use to an effort maker in this scenario. To change this habit and embark upon a completely different course of action or behavior requires understanding courage, detachment, wisdom, and the power of spirituality. Could you take us through all of those?
Well, the first thing is you have to get it, that the reason why things are not working out is because you're not doing it right. So you have to get it, understanding on that sense of wakey. Then, you know, when you realize that, then you have to have a lot of courage to do it differently. And that also requires detachment, because the reason you don't want to do it differently is because you're attached. So the courage and the detachment really help. Wisdom means you've understood and you're acting on your understanding. But without the power of spirituality, it's would if I could, but I can't. With the power of spirituality, you have what it takes to go in the other direction. That's why without meditation, without a connection with God, it's just a nice idea.
Let us go to the last one. It reads, "It is happening, but it is not happening to me." When I read this, I thought, I'm sorry, say what? Okay, it is, you know, when people say, ... it's not personal, it usually is personal. If something is happening in my life, it's very personal. But you start off by saying, circumstances come to test us. The test is, do you remain stable or do you fall apart emotionally, intellectually, or socially? Most of us fall apart because we don't think we have a choice in falling or not.
Something is happening to you, some very big test, and life is falling apart. Use this expression, it is happening, but it's not happening to me, just it's happening, you see.
Does that help you not to feel victimized?
Absolutely. It places you at a distance from this thing. There's another expression that goes with this, and that is, it's not good, it's not bad, it just is.
Okay, so what you're doing is that you're taking the emotions out of it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and the problem in a scenario when adversity strikes is that we tend to get all emotional.
Well, we get caught up in it because it's overwhelming, and this is a way to not get overwhelmed, but that you can just be dispassionate and just look at it as a scene that's happening on the screen. It's happening. I'm out of this scene. And which means you can hold yourself together. So you simply have to say to yourself in that scene, it's happening, but not to me. So if you say it's happening to me, you're part of the scene. If you say it's happening, but it's not happening to me, you remain in your own integrity. You're not falling apart, your surroundings are falling apart. So you're differentiating between yourself and the scene. And if you use this other one, it's not good, it's not bad, it just is, it's doing the same job. Because if you say it's bad, ooh, you know, or it's good, wah, and you get caught up in this, you know, the two opposing energies. But if you keep yourself dispassionate, detached, it's just there. You don't mind about it, you see.
If you adopt this attitude, what does it do for you and to you? How does it change you?
What it does is it makes the difference between you can handle it and you can't handle it. It allows you to hold yourself together in the face of something that normally would, you know, break you apart. It allows you to hold yourself together psychologically and physically. It allows you to walk away from the debris of the catastrophe, you know, and still be in one piece, you see. And so it really strengthens you.
I'm glad you say what you do in the next line, because my question was, is this not denial? But you say to consider that something is happening but that it is not happening to me is not to deny it, because there's no sense in denying that it is happening, isn't it?
Exactly.
Okay, so if it's not denial, then what is it?
Take an example of verbal abuse. Somebody is spouting and going on and giving you all kinds of stuff, and which is designed to penetrate, to actually, stick it to you and really get into your heart and really upset you. But if you say, oh, this person is doing a great performance, is happening, but you're not taking it personally, you're not taking it in because of this positioning of here is a performance going on and I'm just the watcher here, it's nothing to do with me.
Once you have adopted this attitude, what then? Where do you go from there?
You are in your freedom, because you're there's this expression, enmeshment.
Yeah.
So if you're all caught up in what is happening, you're enmeshed in it, and whatever is happening to you, but only if you're enmeshed in it. Once you are detached, it's happening out here and you're watching it. And it only affects you if you get involved. But if you don't get involved and you stay detached, then you're intact.
I can't help but wonder, what do you do in this scenario if you adopt this attitude? What do you do with your feelings? And I'm referring to fear, terror, panic, trauma, OMG.
Well, this is exactly a mechanism that you can use so that you protect yourself from having your feelings provoked into a huge loss of your personal energy. Because whenever you get into panic and fear and so on, all your spiritual energy runs away. You become emptied. You become absolutely disempowered. This is a way to keep yourself in your power, even in the face of something that is calculated to and ordinarily would take you over completely. So it's a protection.
Okay, and then once you are able to achieve this, where do you go from there? Do you embark on a course of action or not?
Well, I think once you start using this, it becomes clear to you and everybody else that you're an independent person. Because all of this happens where there is dependency.
What do you mean, dependency on who or what?
People getting enmeshed with each other because of dependency. I'm financially dependent, so I can't get away. I'm tied socially, so I can't get away. But if you just say, none of these things are real, and also that this performance that's going on is not something that requires me to be involved in it, then with dispassion you can see, well, if it's a relationship that needs to be split, then you split, and you deal with all of the consequences of that. And if you decide, no, this is going on, but I'm going to stay in the situation but keep myself free, in the sense that it takes two to tango, and if there's nobody there for it, it's not going to be able to survive too long, this kind of behavior. So you really have to choose what you're going to do. It might be that you're a parent and your child is acting out, and it's not a good idea to abandon that child. You have a responsibility, you have a connection, you have love. But if you aren't buying into all of that, and you empower yourself in many different ways, you may say, well, this is something I can deal with, and you set about dealing with it. You may need to employ something called tough love, where you really keep a person within boundaries and rules, and that you're not taken over by the temper tantrums or whatever it is, you remain in the position of mastery. You're not a slave in that situation.
If one applies what you have enunciated on these 3-4 pages, what does one become at the end of it all? What is the prize? There's something that one achieves, isn't it, I suppose, because otherwise why make all of this effort?
The prize is that you have quality relationships, and are you really learning how to negotiate your relationships? And this is a tremendously good achievement. And I think also you being an example, and you're causing the other people in your relationship to have to pay attention to some of these strategies, and it means the foundation on which your relationship is based is not old stuff, but new stuff.
Tell us what you mean by quality relationships, and more importantly, why is it important to have good quality relationships?
I think that people exist in order to have happiness. And happiness means that you have enough material that you need, that you have good quality relationships, and that you have good health. So your relationship with matter, people, and your own body is very important in order to experience a happy life. And that is why we are here on this earth, to have happiness. But happiness is not a right, it's something you earn.
How?
We have to work at it, and all of these are instructions how to do the work.
Coming back to the aspect of quality relationships, what is very obvious if one looks at what relationships have become across the globe, many people are in a number of relationships, but the quality of those relationships are questionable. Why is it your emphasis that the relationships should be of a higher quality than perhaps quantity or low quality? What is the impact of good quality relationships on oneself?
It seems to me that the quality of your own life is about the quality of your relationships. You know, if you're a person who can't have a relationship with anybody, it means you're in trouble. You really need to do a great deal of work to deal with this cards that were dealt to you, you can say, at the beginning of your life. There may be trauma to get over, or whatever it happens to be, but you know, the engagement from person to person is really the stuff of which life is made. And you know, you may be a person whose relationships is all to do with family, or it may be that your relationships are to do with people that you resonate with, but you're not in a social tie with, you know what I mean? Or it can be professional, or a little bit of all of it. But your experience of life has to do with your relationship with yourself, with matter, and with other people. And I think also with God, with truth, with some of the larger questions of why am I here? And to really work at it so that there is truth, there is honor, there is integrity. All of these spiritual qualities are all operating in your life. Then you will say success.
What I liked about what you just said is that if your relationships are in turmoil or not the standard that you'd like, what you're saying is that you have to assume the responsibility and fix what's broken. You cannot lay the blame for that at someone else's door. That's very powerful.
There are some things that you can't fix. And if it is something that you can't fix, then leave it. And whatever you can fix, fix it. And you have to come to terms with these two, and this is where you find your serenity.
That is very beautiful, and a lovely note on which to end this episode. Sister Denise, thank you very, very much.
Thank you.
Sister Denise made no illusions of the fact that these attitudes or new principles, they're not easy. She never said it was easy, but she said that what one has to gain at the end of it all is good quality relationships with yourself, with the people around you, and with God. So a very powerful message, Sister Denise. Thank you. Thank you very much. And thank you for spending this half an hour with us. I hope to see you soon for the next episode. Take care and goodbye.